This past week, Bungie released a novel of a TWAB detailing how they plan to nerf abilities and ability cooldowns. Their core philosophy behind this is to make sure weapons are able to shine and abilities aren't too dominant in the crucible. What this means is that the value of exotics with a direct impact on your weapon's performance just shot through the roof. Now, I know you're already thinking about the Phidian aspects, but there's actually another Warlock exotic that gets a lot of play in other areas of the game that will also become very useful come December. That exotic is Lunafation Boots and its exotic perk, Alchemical Etchings. Your rifts gain the additional ability to increase weapon reload speeds. Powering Rift makes weapons effective over longer ranges. Now, the main focus people typically have when using this exotic is on the reload speed, and they sleep on the range boost you get when using Empowering Rift. This range boost allows hand cannons like the Ace of Spades and Thorn to challenge pulses and scouts at scout rifle range and still do near max damage. This allows these weapons to be effective outside their typical optimal range, on top of having the 20% damage increase from the Empowering Rift. This damage buff also allows weapons like the Ace of Spades and Memento Mori procced to 2-tap Guardians from insane ranges. And in this meta where pulses are very strong, having a hand cannon that seemingly has infinite range and the ability to 2-tap is incredibly potent and very likely to catch your enemy off guard. Not to mention that you could also argue that after the most recent TWAB where Bungie discussed how they are tuning abilities, we learned that both Titan Barricades and Hunter Dodge are receiving nerfs, while Warlock Rifts, at least as far as we know right now, will remain unchanged. This, in my opinion, is an indirect buff to Rifts, since a lot of the abilities such as Grenades and Shadow Dive are all having their damage either severely reduced or cooldown increased, meaning there will be fewer things to challenge us in our Empowering Rift with our Lunafation Boots. When you combine the range boost of Lunafaction with a 20% damage boost, then add in the fact that come December 7th, there will be less abilities threatening us, you could be looking at a lot more people running Lunafaction Boots as their main to take advantage of all the benefits this exotic provides to our weapons. Now that we've discussed the exotic and why you should be running it more in the Crucible, let's dive into the subclass and weapons you should be using to really get the most out of this exotic. Starting with the subclass that really pairs best with this exotic, I don't think there's a better option than Well of Radiance. Obviously, you get your super that allows you to also increase your range along with a huge damage boost and allows you to tank a ton of damage. I actually really enjoyed using this subclass with Lunafation Boots because once you get that well, you can just pop that very tactfully in a nice lane, a long lane where you can see clear across the map, where you have somewhere you can really take advantage of that range boost that you would get from Lunafation Boots and just dish out a ton of damage. You can challenge a ton of supers, and it's very hard for enemies to kill you once you're in your well. I also liked it because of Benevolent Dawn. Obviously this is getting nerfed in the future come December, but it still, as of right now, gives you a nice boost in terms of regenerating your grenade melee in Rift. But then using Divine Protection to just help us stay alive in our Rift. Since we're using Empowering Rift, it's gonna be harder for us to stay alive because we're not using the healing aspect of it. So using Divine Protection, consuming your grenade, throwing it at your feet and giving yourself some health and an overshield is huge for using this exotic, because again, we can focus on the damage and range boost we get while also still having some survivability from our grenades and Divine Protection. And that's why I overall really like Middle Tree Solar or Well of Radiance for using Lunafaction, because again, it's just not just your Rift now that you're looking at, also your super is going to tie into this exotic and allowing us to take advantage of that huge range boost. Getting into our weapons, and the number one weapon I recommend is Ace of Spades. Ace of Spades already has insane base stats and insane range, and then you throw in the fact with Memento Mori, where you can now, once you get that kill and reload, you're going to have that damage boost. Combining that with an Empowering Rift and Lunafation Boots, and you are 2-tapping from absolutely insane ranges on your enemies, and you're able to challenge scouts, pulses, basically anything across the map. I didn't lose any fights to some of these longer range weapons. A lot of teams like to camp farther back now since pulses are a lot more viable. Obviously, you have things like Darkest Before that a lot of people tend to prefer, and so having Ace of Spades and having basically no range drop off when you're in Empowering Rift with Lunafactions is very helpful in these scenarios. Can you basically challenge anything now using this weapon and dish out tons of damage once you get that initial kill, on top of the fact that you're always going to have your radar even when aiming down sights, which is especially helpful when you're in a Rift and you're spending a lot of time focusing and ADSing down long lanes, trying to take advantage of the range boost. Keeps us from really having our awareness at a high level without getting stuck with our pants down because we're ADSing for so long. So that's also why I really like Ace of Spades for using with Lunafation Boots. Now, another great option here is Thorn. Thorn's biggest weakness out of everything is its range. It has amazing handling, decent stability, reload speed is so-so, but the range is what really holds Thorn back. That's why everybody's praying for a catalyst, including myself. And so using this Thorn with Lunafaction Boots actually kind of gives it that catalyst feel, because the catalyst is rumored to give it range. And so this makes the Thorn feel absolutely crispy, because now you're not worrying about that damage drop off. Only downside with this is a lot of times when you get those long range kills, you would have to leave your rifts to get those remnants. So how I recommend using Thorn with Empowering Rift and Lunafaction Boots is try to secure a kill or two if you can with Thorn, pick up the remnant, then that is when you're going to want to throw down your Empowering Rift and take advantage of that range boost and extra damage, and then that will stack with the remnants and extra burn damage you get from Thorn, and then this thing absolutely melts people. I got a chance to kill people out of their supers from crazy distances when using Thorn with Mark of the Devourer proc and an Empowering Rift in combination with Lunafaction Boots, and this thing just becomes an absolute monster. And Lunafaction just completely erases the one downside of this weapon, which was the range. Now, the other weapon I highly recommend that I really enjoyed also using with the exotic that is not a hand cannon is Darkest Before. Darkest Before is already very popular in the Crucible. The fast firing pulse rifle rapid fire frame archetype, and can just dish out a ton of damage. Feels really good in the Crucible in terms of overall feel. And again, similar thing to Thorn, its biggest downside is its range against when you compare it to other pulses. Pairing this with Lunafaction Boots and the Empowering Rift again removes that downside. I was absolutely shredding people from crazy distances with this weapon because it feels like there's almost no range drop off when using it. And so this was another great pairing for holding down those lanes in your Empowering with your Lunafaction Boots, or when you get that well of radiance, dropping that well is just insane the damage you can do. I was melting anyone and everyone, including people in their supers, and just challenging everything, and I really had an awesome time using this weapon. So if you have a great Darkest Before, I know a lot of people spend a lot of time grinding for a god roll in this weapon. So for those of you that have Darkest Before, even if it's not the best roll, the roll I have is not even that good, and it still felt amazing using with Lunafaction Boots. All right, stats. In terms of stats, the most important thing you're gonna be looking at here is how do we further increase the regeneration of our Rift, and how do we further increase regeneration of our super, since we're using Well of Radiance. And as you guessed it, you're going to want to focus on recovery and intellect. And another thing to keep in mind when we're talking about recovery and intellect is Well of Radiance come December will have, I believe, the lowest cooldown out of all the supers, and so you're going to get it even faster if you spec into high intellect come December. And so recovery is going to tie directly into how quickly we get back our Rift, giving us that class ability cooldown of 41 seconds. And then of course intellect is going to tie into how fast we get back our well. Now, if we can run a little bit more discipline, so we can get back that grenade and use that divine protection to get that overshield and health back, just to help us keep alive in our rifts, this is something I also recommend. But if you can't get your discipline super high, like I can't here based on the armor I have, I do recommend making sure you're using double bomber. This will allow us, when you pop your rift, to get more class ability energy, which will allow us to just get our rift even quicker on top of or because we're getting our rift so quickly, that'll tie into helping us get back our grenade faster, to really tie together this entire little build, I would say. And then, so overall, recovery and intellect are going to be the two #1 things you're going to want to focus on to help you get your rift back as quickly as possible and help us get our super as quickly as possible. So the more uptime we can keep in our rift, in our well, the more successful we'll be using Lunafaction Boots, the more we'll be able to take advantage of our primary, whether it's Ace of Spades, Thorn, Darkest Before, whatever weapon you decide to use. Lunafaction Boots are going to increase the range of any weapon to just crazy levels, and so the more we can be taking advantage of these by getting our rifts and our well, that's going to lead us to success in our Crucible matches. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my video detailing another great rift based exotic in the stag at the top, or my video breaking down bottom tree Dawnblade at the bottom.